See, I can't click mine. Can you click yours?
Nope. Let me see. Maybe it's just lag. Oh, now I can.
Now I
Can you?
can.
All right. I guess there's just like a minute lag after it. Hey, that's pretty smooth for us. It's 5 p.m. and I think this is working.
We're on time.
This is a new success for us. I'll just keep the sign posted while we confirm.
Oh my gosh. Look at that.
I know. I
We're
feel so
live,
proud of us.
and it's 5 o'clock. It's not 5:30.
All right. Yes, it's working. We have succeeded. 5 o'clock still. Ooh, only took 6 episodes.
I know.
Well, actually fewer than that because we got the Restream software.
Yeah. Oh, there
recently.
she is.
Sharon. That's
Hey.
Sharon joining. Hi.
How are you? Nice to meet you, Brittany.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
I want to make sure that Sharon's showing up in here too. It might be a bit of a delay. Let's see. All right, we'll give it a minute. I wonder if we are. Oh, yeah, she's there. Okay, perfect. We've succeeded. 501. Adding a person. Man,
yes.
This is success. I think we may have peaked in our podcasting. Good.
I think we're great.
I think we're fabulous. I think Sharon's fabulous too. Sharon, welcome. Welcome to the United Podcast.
Thanks so much for joining.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Do you know a lot about Alfie Kohn?
I'm sorry?
Do you know a lot about Alfie Kohn?
Alfie Kohn?
Yeah, the author.
I don't know a lot. Actually, I was just introduced to this book by Ashlyn, and I thought that it was so interesting and the take that he has. So I was like, yeah, I want to join you guys. I read the chapters and I got really interested in, that approach. I do talk about, the avoiding rewards or not using rewards in parenting because I support parents more than I do teachers. But we do follow kind of the same structure, like the same conscious approach. So that's why me and Ashlyn kind of bonded in that sense. So yeah.
Cool.
Yes, and I think that we should have you do like a formal introduction to Sharon. That way people know who you are, know what you're about. I also added your handle too so people can find you after this.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So so my name is Sharon Medina. My company is Teaching Through Education. So what I do is I am a coach for teens. I work with students ages, well, probably preteens as well. I work with students ages 10 to 17, and I support them with like life skills, learning different types of life skills and academic strategies, using a lot of like social and emotional techniques to be able to help them like learn skills beyond the classroom so that they can walk into the world like already ready to conquer it, right? And so so I guess I'm a teen coach, and I recently started parenting coaching as well, just because a lot of the parents in my program were asking like, what can we do at home that so that our students, our child, can follow the same kind of behavior and things that they do with you when they are being mentored. Like, what can we do? So we started doing like kind of a parenting coaching as well. That is something that's new for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Sharon. Well, we're glad that you're here and we are excited to dive into today's episode, which is going to be kind of like a recap episode. So
Okay.
outline for it is going to be Brittany and I are going to do our summaries of all the stuff that we've read. But I'm telling Brittany this for the first time. I think we should do it with a little bit of a twist for this episode because it's the recap. So what if we like took our headphones off so we couldn't hear the sound? Sharon hears though, while the other person is summarizing. That way we have no idea what each other said, and Sharon can tell us how close our summaries align.
Okay. I like
Okay,
that.
that sounds amazing.
All
You
right.
know, I thought it was a good idea. I thought it would
Yeah.
add some flair. So after our summary, then we're going to kind of recap the 4 chapters we've read so far, talk about how we actually do these things that we're learning about in our schools that are dripping in PBIS or punishments. And then we're going to kind of talk to the different people we see in our comments and our posts who interact with us, people who are like, let's do all this immediately. I'm so for this, all the way to the people who are like, we hate you. We hate everything you stand for. And then we're going to address some comments that people have in the chat area and that people have posted in our Facebook group. And then finally, we're going to just talk about some things that we're looking forward to learning about and some action tips for teachers and caregivers. And of course, Sharon's going to be joining us throughout this whole journey too.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
Yes. Okay. So our summaries. Are you ready for this, Brittany?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
maybe Sharon, can you time us for 2 minutes? And
2
that
minutes.
way we'll see. And then the other one can step away from the computer a little bit.
All right. Sounds good.
So Brittany, I think I summarized last time first, right?
I think so, but I lose track. So
All right.
I'll go first.
Okay. So let me know when you're ready and I'll step away the way I can't hear anything.
Okay.
I like
Hear
the
that-
cracking
my
the neck
neck
like
crack?
you're a professional
Yeah.
athlete over there.
Oh,
Getting ready for game day.
Stretch.
Stretching.
know. whew. It's always so. Ooh. Okay. Okay. Wait. Let me like roll up these quotes here. Okay. Okay.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah.
Do
I'm
you
ready.
have
I'm ready.
like your cell phone so you can hold it up to the screen, Sharon?
Oh, I'm actually in my cell phone. Do you guys need me to
perfect.
transfer to my computer?
No,
No.
it's all right. As long as you can tell her, like you have like 10 seconds left, so she's aware.
Yeah, I'm actually in my computer looking for the timer that I have there. So, yeah, we can work this.
All right.
Yeah, just let me know, Sharon, when you're ready.
All right, it's loading. Sorry, it takes a little bit longer on my computer, but I think we are ready. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to step away. Best of luck.
Can you count me down to 3, 2, 1?
Okay, ready? Let's see. 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so Punished by Rewards, Alfie Kohn. Summary. The book starts out talking about the belief of rewards, how deserving people should be rewarded, and people who aren't deserving should be punished. And that is a very American ideology. He talks about how America, the one contribution we've had to psychology is behaviorism, and that is heavily influenced by our individualistic and capitalistic society. And then he goes into, with the other chapters, the issues with rewarding and how rewarding impacts intrinsic motivation, creative thinking, harms relationships. He talks about specific research and how rewarding can influence the quality of the work done, and it really only like changes the quantity when rewards are offered. And then he looks at how rewards harm relationships because it's very controlling, manipulative, and it tips the power hierarchy in the favor of the person that has the most power, which is typically for us teachers. Then he talks about how rewarding and punishing are the same thing, because when you have to take away a reward or the person doesn't receive the reward, it has the same effect as if you were punishing the person. And then he talks about how rewarding does not address the actual issue. So if you're trying to get a person to do something, yes, rewards are great. But if you are trying to solve a problem and like find the reason for the behavior, rewarding is not going to do that. Behavioral interventions exclude from consideration the factors that may matter most. So rewarding in the classroom is a very ineffective way to deal with behavior. Am I up?
Almost.
Okay.
20 more seconds. Just wanted to let you know.
Yeah. So the reasons why teachers shouldn't be using rewards is because it impacts creativity, decreases creative problem solving. It is the same as punishing behavior. It's manipulative, controlling. It impacts the quality of work, and it impacts the relationship. I'm trying to see if I missed anything. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, perfect. Sorry, that felt a little weird, but let's bring Ashlyn back in. There you go.
I feel like that was the universal I'm good sign.
Yeah.
All right. I bet that was really good, Brittany. You always kill the summaries.
Yes.
All right. You stepping away, or are you turning your microphone off? How you doing this?
Why do I have to turn my microphone?
Oh, I guess you have to turn your microphone off, but your headphones, so you don't. Actually, no, I guess it's fine because you'll just hear me now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
All right. Let's start. There you go.
All right. So, in the first 4 chapters of Punished by Rewards, Alfie Kohn talks about what makes rewards so detrimental in school, and he breaks it down little by little. So to start off, he talks about the psychology behaviorism that goes into making these reward systems, and what's so damning about that. Because a lot of the psychological studies that impact the decision to reward children for their behavior come from things like being tested on animals and research linked to animals. And he really brings up the ethics of, is this actually what we should be relating to people? And should this be what is informing our decision making? It also touches upon too how I'm losing it. How the adults who are leading the class might go to rewards because they feel uncomfortable without them, because noise might make them uncomfortable, or fearing like they don't have control might make them uncomfortable. So after unpacking that, then he moves on to chapter 2, where he talks about if it's even right to reward. So what happens when we are rewarding people, and is it actually helpful or is it harming them? And turns out, not surprisingly for us because we're in this book club, that it is not helpful at all, and it does hurt kids, and it hurts intrinsic motivation in relationships. Then after that, he talks about if it is effective to reward. So are we actually going to be getting what we want to get through doing these rewards? Is it actually going to lead to the kind of outcomes that we want? Because as educators and as caregivers, we want what's best for our kids. We want them to be successful. We want them to learn and to want to learn. So through the act of rewarding, we're actually dampening that, and we're making it less likely that they're going to want to do those things without the rewards. And then finally, the last chapter that we read is The Trouble with Carrots, 4 Reasons Why Rewards Fail. And this goes into the 4 reasons why exactly rewards fail. So I have to make sure I have my 4 reasons up here now.
Yep. So just like Brittany, I'm giving you the 20 second.
20 seconds. Okay.
Yes.
So the 4 reasons are that rewards punish people, rewards rupture relationships, Rewards ignore reasons, and rewards discourage risk taking. Boom.
Oh, you
Woo!
did it. You still have 8 seconds left. So that was good.
Yeah.
All right. So, how
All right.
closely did we align?
I feel like you guys aligned quite well. I think that you talked a little bit more on the uh, theory behind it, Ashlyn. Um, but overall, the main concepts of like why rewards should be used or shouldn't be used, you both talked about it. And one of the things, I guess, the effectiveness of the rewards, that's one of the things that you both also highlighted. Um, I think the only difference between both was that you went more into like the psychological research behind it. But overall, the alignment was pretty excellent.
Nice. I think it's cool because we always pull out different things
Mhm.
in our summary. So it's interesting seeing the way our brains differ like that. Well, the first thing we're going to start doing is kind of just unpacking these chapters and what we've learned and what's really stuck with us. So, chapter 1, Skinner Box, The Legacy of Behaviorism. What are some things that have stuck with you, ladies, even after like months? Has it been months? After weeks, whatever it's been since we started this. What are the thoughts that keep permeating in your mind?
So whenever I read it, he talked a lot about like oversimplifying human behavior into like the stimulus response
Yeah.
in the first chapter, right? So the patterns that kind of move a person, whether it's a reward or a punishment, right? So I think that one of the things that kind of stuck with me was like it really overlooks more of like the complexity of human motivation and the value of like autonomy and self-directed action. That is one of the things that I thought of when I read that chapter. I don't know if you guys think the same.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think the one thing that I keep coming back to with people who question whether we should be getting rid of rewards or not, they'll always bring up, well, humans are animals. And like they really like that is a comment that keeps getting posted on a lot of my content. And I have to say, well, yes, humans are animals, but we also have way more complex thinking patterns,
Yes.
consciousness, motivation, relationships. All of those things go into impacting motivation. And pigeons and mice don't have that.
That is so true.
They don't have consciousness. They don't have an understanding of power hierarchy.
Yeah, it kind of highlights like the instincts part of the animals. Like, yeah, we might be animals, as well, but we don't just we don't just rely on our instincts, right? So that was one of the things that kind of got me thinking of like, well, it doesn't take into our logic, right? Our like I said, our autonomy, our experiences, etc.
And the ability to use fire.
Yeah.
At, a sixth grade, I do humanities, so I teach the history standards. That's one of the big differences that we talked about. The ability to harness fire.
Yeah.
Look at that. Sixth grade curriculum coming in
And build
right
community.
now.
Like,
right?
Yes.
And then gather around the fire with that community.
Yes.
I think the thing that has really stuck with me, and I just remember, I could probably almost directly quote it, but I'm going to read it. It's from page 16, and I'm sure, Brittany, you're going to remember this because you mentioned this on the first episode. But it says, in the middle of a lecture on behaviorism a few years ago in Idaho, one teacher in the audience blurted out, "But stickers are so easy." This is absolutely true. If she finds herself irritated that children in her class are talking, it takes courage and thought to consider whether it is reasonable to expect them to sit quietly for so long, or to ask herself whether the problem might be her own discomfort with noise. It takes effort and patience to explain respectfully to 6-year-olds the reason for her request. It takes talent and time to help them develop the skill of self control and a commitment to behave responsibly. But it takes no courage, no thought, no effort, no patience, no talent, and no time to announce. Keep quiet, and here's what you'll get.
I think that's my favorite quote.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like it really sums up everything so well because rewards are so easy.
Yeah.
You know?
And
And
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
So
Oh,
I
and
think,
then, oh, sorry.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Brittany.
Okay, so I've been struggling with a class, and it's very easy to fall back when you feel the overwhelm of loss of control. And, in my case, students fight, and it can get dangerous. It's very, very easy to fall back on those, the systems that were used on us and the systems that others are using. Um, and with rewarding, it's like we talk about it seems easier, but it's really not, because it's a lot to handle and it's a lot to manage, and it's very like subjective, and you get all of that into the process of rewarding. But when you are overwhelmed and stressed, like I can see why. I remember why teachers go back to rewarding, because
Yeah.
you've got a lot on your plate when you're handling a really difficult class, and you're very triggered.
It
And
feels like
that's
control too,
yeah.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
It's
yes,
something you can
100%.
control.
Yep, and that sense of control that you feel with rewarding and having the power, it can be comforting.
And that's why I feel like conscious classroom management and like this different approach to behavior, it's like you have to rewire your brain to do it
Yeah.
effectively because it's so easy just to resort to everything, especially if you've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
it's the same thing with conscious parenting. A lot of people believe that conscious parenting is about like, how we treat our children in a conscious way. But that is not what really conscious parenting is about. And I'm guessing it's the same when we do conscious learning, conscious education. It is about how we internalize our emotions, um, our feelings, our actions, and respond in a conscious way. So it doesn't have anything to do with the child themselves. It has to do with how do we go back and internalize what am I feeling and how am I going to respond to the situation.
Yeah, exactly. So going from there, why don't we talk about if it's right to reward or not? So chapter 2. What are some of the things that really stuck out to you or that you remember from that chapter?
I think that the big takeaway I had was how he described American culture and how we use pop behaviorism, and how that aligns with like the bootstrap theory. Pull yourself up
Mhm.
by your bootstraps.
Yep.
Everybody has the ability to succeed if you just try hard enough. And it doesn't take into account, privilege, neurodivergency, systemic racism. It's very, like I said, individualistic and capitalistic. That if a person does, if they do what society deems right, they should be rewarded, and if they don't or can't, then they should be punished.
Exactly. And I was just thinking too about like people getting what they deserve
Mhm.
and the almost obsession with that,
Yeah.
and I feel that happening like in myself too sometimes. If I feel overstimulated, I know like at points I want to be like, oh, well, let me just like do this. That way that kid's upset too because I feel upset. So that
Mhm.
kid deserves to be upset. I'm like, no, stop. What are you doing, Ashlyn? You know better than this. So I
Yeah.
take that breath, reset, go into it. But yeah, even like just in conversations and passing in schools, you're going to hear people talking about what kids deserve. And they might not use that word, you know, but they might.
Yeah, because a lot of times they say, "Oh, they saw that coming, like it
Yeah.
needed to
Or I
happen."
feel like the word earn is used kind of in place of that.
Mhm.
I feel like that gives it a bit of a, well, it's not a euphemism almost. Like, oh, well, that kid doesn't deserve to be suspended, but they didn't earn a reward. Their behavior's
Mhm.
not making them earn this, so you can't earn that.
I hear, especially being so PBIS infused,
Mhm.
that, oh, well, they don't deserve Fun Friday. They don't
Yeah.
deserve the field trip.
Yep.
They don't deserve, like,
And
Mhm.
truthfully, like when we're here, we're not judging anybody for this because I don't know about you guys, but like I've used language like that.
mhm,
You know, it just
Yeah.
comes
Yeah.
out so easily, and I feel like it's also so embedded in our culture and our society
mhm,
that feels like second nature to say that. Then the other thing that really stuck out to me in this chapter is kind of putting yourself in the recipient's shoes.
mm.
And when you're thinking about what you're doing in the classroom, how you're managing behaviors, the way you address things when they come up, how would it feel if you were the recipient of that? And if it wouldn't feel good, well, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah. When we talk about the word deserve, I feel like our society, our culture, religion, especially, well, for me, I come from a Latin American culture, and it's always been taught to us that, you have to work hard and suffer to deserve something. I don't know if you guys have the same thing. So when we read about, whether a child deserves something or not, based on like their effort or their actions, it is like it is not, I guess, painful enough to acquire for them, so they don't deserve it, or something like how do I put it? Um, like we need to have that hard uh that hard work in order to deserve something. And that is something that has been ingrained in our society, in our minds, that um, how do we know like who really deserves? Like we all deserve everything. Like we were all born here on an equal status. We all deserve happiness. We all deserve, um, you know, equality and peacefulness. All of these things. So how can we measure what someone else deserves or doesn't deserve?
And that's
Right.
something he addressed
So
too, in the chapter. I forget where it was, but he mentioned something like that about, well, do you like think about the things that brought that person to that place? And like he really unpacks it and takes some
yeah,
steps backwards to look at like what actually constitutes deservingness.
And who
yeah,
determines
Yeah.
what people deserve?
True.
You
Yeah.
know, like,
yeah. That was one of the parts that stuck to me, because he talks about like, okay, does this person really deserve? But that action that person took came from like an action that another person took, and maybe an action that another person after that. So who really deserves that reward or that punishment, right? So that is a very interesting concept.
Yeah. And then the third chapter is effective to reward. The things that have stood out to me is just how much rewards hurt. So the way that they kill intrinsic motivation, and also the way that they can make somebody just be compliant, and how the tasks that you
Yeah,
use rewards for, like you're going to make somebody um less inclined to do that task without it, and the detrimental
yeah.
effect
I
that has
feel
on
like,
people.
mhm, and
yeah,
learning.
on that aspect, I feel like I talk to my students a lot in our mentorship program, because they are so used to like being rewarded to do something, either at home or at school. And in some way, it kind of guides them to take, like to focus just on reward and take like the easiest path, like, okay, yes, I'm going to finish this because I'm going to get this. Or my parents told me that if I get an A, they're going to take me to this place, or they're going to buy me this. So kind of take the easiest path. Some of the things that I've seen in some of my students in mentorship is like, in order to get to that A, they even resort to like shortcuts and cheating. Like, the only reason is getting that because they're going to get a reward afterwards. It doesn't matter how they get there, just
Yeah,
getting there, right?
exactly. And I think that was something he mentioned there too. Something along the lines of, if you tell somebody if you do X, you'll get Y, then they're going to focus on the Y. They're not going to
Mhm.
focus on the
Yeah.
X.
Or like
Yeah.
when he talked about the Pizza Hut, what is it? Like what was that called? Where you get a personal pan pizza. Book It? Is that what it was called? I think it was called Book It. That was the program. And it was
Oh,
for every
yeah.
book,
Oh,
every
yes,
book you
yes.
read, you get
You will get
like
a slip for
point.
pizza. Yes,
Yeah.
I read that.
And there was I think it was a politician where he said, we're gonna end up with a bunch of fat kids that don't like to read. And I mean, as like harmful as that language can be, like that, it's true. Like they're just trying to get the pizza and they're not enjoying the reading. Like, so what ended up happening was you had all of these kids choosing these really easy books
To
just to
read,
get
yeah.
through. Right. And then they ended up resenting reading
And I actually
after
want
the
to step
program.
in here because I want to ask you guys, did you guys ever did that? Because I remember that
Yeah.
I used to always want to get that slip, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting free pizza. So I'm just going to grab and kind of summarize what I read and prove to my parents, like I did read it, prove to my teacher, and I'm going to get that pizza. But did I remember anything that I read before? No, I didn't.
I
Mhm.
remember I love to read. So I wanted to read the big chapter books. Like I remember that I think that was like in 3rd or 4th grade and I was reading like Boxcar Kids and Anna Green Gables. I was reading chapter books. But everybody around me they were getting way more points because they were reading like these short books. So I just lied. I mean, I was reading, but I wasn't getting the points. So I straight up just made up books and got that pizza.
What were the titles?
That's all I
What
care
kind of
about.
books were
Like,
you reading, Brittany? What what fake books? What was your genre?
oh man, I don't know. I probably went to the library and did some. I was clever as a kid. I was a clever
I
child.
believe that.
Yeah, no, but like it wasn't really fair because I was above the reading level of these kids. So I was reading like novels, probably stuff that I shouldn't have been reading because I definitely got into some like young adult novels at that time in 3rd grade. But yeah, like that's just my books were like 200 pages and these kids were like flying through these books.
Flying through those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I wanted that pizza.
I forget what we were even talking about before I started talking about the pizza and then the book rewards. Are we talking
How
about
it makes
chapter
you
4 now?
well,
How it makes you take shortcuts or
Oh,
like
yeah,
take
yeah.
the path less traveled by, like the easiest path.
Mm-hmm.
you focus on Y instead of X.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the summary, I feel like, for that chapter. You focus on Y instead of X.
Well, the trouble with carrot 4 reasons. Okay, does trouble with carrots cover creativity? How it kills creative problem solving? Because I feel like we have to address that.
It was either 3 or 4, may have
Yeah.
been both.
I think they touched on it with both. But
Tell us your thoughts, Miss Art Teacher.
that is really one thing that really stood out to me because one, I've experienced it. Like I've experienced the creative killing effect of having a deadline or like
Oh yeah.
having to create for money instead of my own my own joy.
Yeah.
and how I become way more creative when it's on my time and on with my intrinsic motivation than it is for like being compensated or I'm trying to meet a deadline. So I experienced that firsthand. And then being an art teacher and doing STEAM in my room, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Um, the engineering portion really like gets me because when if we're rewarding and just trying to get compliance and education, we're not developing an engineer mindset. If
Mhm.
we're killing kids' creative problem solving, like what are we doing to the world in 20, 30 years? You know?
Mhm.
Yeah. I feel like I also experienced the same thing. I When I was in school, I was actually ahead of my class, just because when we moved from Colombia here, the education system over there is a lot more strict. I don't know if they kind of push the kids um, harder. I don't know why, but by the time that I got here, I was probably in fifth grade level, like reading and math, and I was put down to third grade when I got here. So I was pretty advanced, but I also realized that whenever they had some kind of deadline to assignments, or even though I liked the topic and I was really motivated to do it, when I had like those deadlines, I just kind of did the the simplest part rather than really showing my passion and my knowledge towards it. It was just like I got it, I have to get it done and let's just get it done, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's
And
it.
that's exactly how I felt about reading in school. Like I'm an English major, and I remember like being in like high school and college and being like, I don't want to read. But like obviously I liked it because I went down that trajectory and I do love reading. But being on that timetable and feeling so much pressure, maybe even like having the grades attached to it too.
Yeah.
It kind of killed that love for me until maybe like a year after college. And I was like, all right, I will pick up a book again. I've done my time of like decompressing from that stress journey that college was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely happens. I mean, when like whenever we are in college and you are kind of forced to read all these books and to do all these things, you get out and you're like, I don't want to see another book for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Research papers. I was
Yes.
so tired of reading research papers. Now I love them, but I just
Yeah.
you had to take
Yeah.
a break. Like
Yeah. So much stuff.
if I have to
Well,
make one APA or MLA citation, like just
one more citation. You're
Like,
gonna throw that laptop.
yeah.
The last chapter now, the trouble with carrots, 4 reasons why rewards fail. What are the things that stood out to you ladies there?
Mm,
Uh, so for me, um, the fact that rewarding or punishing, like that's our only two options.
Oh,
Where he
yes.
says like the dichotomy, it's a false dichotomy that we've created.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the fact that rewards and punishments are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. And also how
yeah. One.
punitive they are too. Sorry to interrupt, Sharon.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
how punitive they are. Because I feel like he mentions this in here. How like now in more contemporary education, we're trying to move away from the punishment. And if you do this, then this is the threat I'm going to give you. But we're doing the same thing with rewards. It just sounds prettier.
Hmm.
Yeah. One of the things that stuck to me was how we are kind of creating a society that is addicted to to the rewards. Like, you know, if you don't do this, you're going to get this, or if you do this, you're going to get this. But it is like making each child expect a reward if they do something, not kind of doing it on their own, uh, for their own account or for accountability and things like that. It's just there's always a expectation now.
Yeah, and I've talked about this on here before too, like being so shook at the when a student a few years back was like, I asked them if they could pick up a pencil, and they were like, "What am I going to get if I do that?" And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" But that's exactly the culture we create through doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only that, we should really be looking at what it does to the brain, because receiving a reward is very similar to receiving the shot of like dopamine that we get when with gambling, you know?
Yeah.
And that surge of the chemical, like, and that's probably why I'm not a neurologist, but listen to me. Okay. So I think that it has something to do with impacting the motivation of the tasks that we enjoy, but the motivation is reduced once a reward is introduced. So it could be something that the student really likes to do, but as soon as you introduce a reward, the motivation, you see the motivation is reduced. So, or decreases.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it has to do with the chemicals of the brain, whether it's cortisol because the stress response, having to, that stressor of, oh, am I going to get this? Am I going to get it? When am I going to get it? And then the dopamine from once they receive it. Well, actually, I think the dopamine is highest in the anticipation, but that's my chemical brain chemistry lesson.
Chemical brain chemistry lesson.
Chemical
brought
brain.
to you by Brittany from
Yes.
Teaching to a Riot.
Oh my God.
Subscribe
We
for
have to
more
cut that
brain
out.
chemical information.
Yeah, we have to cut that out. No, I'm going to leave it in.
Yeah, we'll keep
Here we
that there.
Yep. Nope, we're keeping it in. I'm legit.
So now that we've kind of reviewed these chapters and we know that rewards are not the way, what do we do when you're teaching in a school where PBIS is shoved down your throat?
Mm-hmm.
That is an excellent question.
I honestly feel like it depends on your administrator.
Uh-huh.
You know, like what you can do. I feel like if you have an administrator who breathes down your back, then it might be a bit harder to sway. But if you have an administrator who's like, we just like really want to support kids and do what's best for them, and you're like, hey, I know this way works really well with my students, I'm going to do this. I feel like a good administrator will also empower you to do that.
And one of the things that can be done, and then this is something, I've been out of the classroom for a couple of years now, but I do this with my mentees and, also my mentors. I teach them is rather than having like a reward based system, I always talk about having a connection based system. So rather than you saying, if you do this, I'm going to give you this, saying, when you do this, let's do something that builds a connection. So for example, a lot of the mentors have like, I don't know, they created like a song with the mentee, and if once they finish whatever needs to be done, they can make up the next part of the song. Or handshakes, like we're going to start first a handshake, maybe we're just going to fist bump, but whenever you finish something else, we're going to create another part of the handshake. And it's more of like building this trust-based connection system rather than a reward system.
Yeah. And I even feel like a support system is what you build. Like I'm thinking about in my classroom, what I do, because I don't reward. And I'm thinking like if I have a kid who's struggling or a kid who doesn't want to do their work, like my thing used to be like, hey, if you do this, I'll give you this candy. But now I obviously don't do that. It's been a few years too. So now what I do, if a kid's shut down, I check in, I say, hey, how's it going? What's going on? Everything all right? Like, and then if they seem like really discouraged or upset, I say like, what can I do to help? Like, I'm here to support you. What can I do to help? What would make this feel like an easier lift for you?
Yeah,
And,
I
like,
think that
see
question
what
is
they need.
so Oh, sorry. I think that question that you just said is so important, and it's so easy, like just saying, "How can I help?" You know, tell me, and involving the child in that process and that connection. Like, what can I do to support you? How can I support you? Right?
Exactly. I also think that this is a new design for a t-shirt. Support system over reward system.
Yeah,
Hey.
I definitely buy that.
You know, Brittany and I have a list. We come up with like a new t-shirt design every single episode. So
I
we'll
think
make an ignited clothing line.
I think we should definitely have Brittany's chemical brain chemistry lesson.
Yeah.
Brittany's chemical brain chemistry lesson. You can
Yeah.
join our Google Classroom where you'll receive brain chemical chemistry.
Yeah. 101.
I really love like the double dose of chemical in there, just so people really know we're talking about that.
Yeah, it'll be all in caps.
Absolutely. Because it's so important.
Everything's important, Ashlyn.
Brittany, when she did the training with me, she had the purest heart and she was capitalizing every freaking thing. And I was like, Brittany, this is not a proper noun. And she's like, but it just seems important, so I should capitalize it.
Yeah.
That's the purest justification for breaking
Oh
the rules of
man.
standard
Oh, and poor
grammar.
Ashlyn had to go through every slide.
Lowercase, every single
And
thing.
lowercase.
Everything.
Everything was important.
It
Oh,
was.
Okay, wait. I had something to add to what we were just talking about. So, what were we talking about? We were talking about
Supporting kids, support systems.
and asking, right?
Mhm.
So that's like if we approach the behavior, I call it a behavior detective, right? Like if we approach the behavior as in, what does this kid need? And we talk to them, and I operate under the belief that every child wants to learn. Like there is no child that wants to fail at anything. Just you cannot convince me. I've had so many people try to convince me. No, every child wants to learn. And
It's
if you
natural
operate,
for them.
yeah, it is. It is. And if you operate under that understanding, then when you look at that kid who's shut down, you're like, oh, something's wrong. I got to figure out what's wrong. And not this, that kid's trying to tick me off, or that kid doesn't want to do the work, that kid's lazy, that blah, it's just such a better mindset to approach everything by. Like, you're going to feel more empathy. You're going to feel more satisfaction. You're going to be able to actually solve the problem. You're going to have better relationships.
Yeah. So then, sorry, Sharon, go ahead.
Oh, I think the one problem is that we have been taught and trained to like control our classrooms. Like it comes all down back to control. Like, oh, if that kid is acting up, it's because I'm losing control over that student, and it has nothing to do with us or the control, because we can't control anybody. We can control ourselves, and that's the only person that we have control over. Like even as a mom, whenever I talk to my parents in my community, that is one of the things that I push is, we are parents, but they are not ours. They are a unique person, and we can't control everything we do. We can guide, which is different, and we can support, but we can't control. So, being able to look at it in that mindset of, I cannot control this person, and the actions that they're having is because they can't control something in their lives. It can be emotions, it can be anything that's happening at home. So how can I support that kid by understanding what's going behind, the action behind the behavior? So just going with that mindset of like understanding. I need to understand to be able to support and guide.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So then what would you say to different people who are at different levels of their journey to like more of a conscious classroom management? So the people who are ready to jump right in and they're like, yes, this sounds amazing. I want to do it now. What would be your advice for them? Like if they want to change everything tomorrow?
Oh, prioritize. Do not try to change everything tomorrow.
Yeah. I would stick to the same thing. Like we are not superheroes, even though sometimes we want to be. We
Mhm.
cannot take on everything at the same time. We need to take it a little step at a time, and it will go a long way.
Yeah, and I feel like picking the battles that you want to fight.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what I always tell the teachers who I work with, it's pick the battles that affect your sanity and that affect your children's well-being.
Hmm.
That's your starting place. If it's not on that list, don't worry about that one right now. You know,
Yep.
like if kids are like loud in the hallway, okay. Is that going to affect your well-being? Is that going to affect like their outcome? Probably not so much. But
Mhm.
if they're like really loud in the classroom and disruptive, that's more impactful. So start there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I always tell the people that I work with, whether they're parents or the actual students, I always fall back on the 80-20 rule. Um, like, we have to dedicate, the 20% that of the activities that will actually get us to that 80% of results or um, you know, so we cannot do it the opposite. 80% will actually lower our chances of getting any productivity. And I think that that is the best way to kind of tackle this. Like if you want to become more conscious, whether it's in parenting or education, let's start with that 20% or even that 1%, like giving it your all in that 1%. And that 1% will get you so far.
Mhm.
If you don't know what the 80-20 rule is, you should look it up because it's
Yes.
used in a lot of behavioral motivation and um, what would you like
Like,
growth, personal growth books. I've
Mhm.
read it a lot in.
yeah, a lot of like growth mindset and
Mhm.
productivity.
Yep.
Yeah, like the self-help genre.
Yeah.
So then what would you say to the people who are nervous about this?
Hmm.
I think I always tell everyone that's nervous about taking it, have all the feelings, the fear, the nervousness, but do it anyways. Take
Mhm.
that action because you're going to see that with every step, the fear's going to go away. You're going to learn, you're going to get experience, and it's going to move you towards the direction that you want to be in.
Mhm.
But take the step.
I always give the advice to surround yourself by people who are determined to love the profession. So if you're nervous, you should surround yourself by people who have already implemented these systems or have or are going to try with you. And it doesn't need to be in person. You can find it social media, people in your district, people in your state. Find your community.
Yeah.
Yes.
And my advice would be to remember that it's a false dichotomy that we're existing in. It's not like you reward the kids so they behave or you punish the kids so they behave. There's so many other options out there. And
Yeah.
don't think that if you don't give a token or you don't give a detention or a demerit or something because a kid is acting a certain way means that you're letting that behavior slide or you're being a bad teacher. There are many ways that you can address something and help a child that don't involve the exchange of a good or the enforcement of a punishment.
Yeah. I also think that the way that we can, take that step is kind of reframing the fact of like us having to determine the good and the bad, like you said, but working together. I talk a lot about like working as a team and kind of spreading that accountability will
Mhm.
take away a lot of that fear and nervousness if you engage the kids into these decision making,
Yeah.
into these steps. Things will be so much easier and they will feel that they have their own accountability towards something that they're taking that grasp and saying, I'm being allowed to be trusted, I'm being allowed to have a say in something, and they will actually behave better and work better with you as a collaboration rather than you trying to do it all on your own.
Yeah. And that also is freeing too. Like I talk about that a lot. Like the treasure chest carries a really heavy weight. And once you recognize that you're not playing a game to control, then you're free to do other things. And then
Yeah.
you can see kids in their mayhem and you're like, okay, I'm not going to control their mayhem. What can I do to help them through whatever they're going through? It changes your role in the classroom and it gives you so much more freedom and peace of mind. So then the last group of people we should address are the people who hate us, the people who come into our comments and just troll. So what would you say to somebody who is like, you're destroying children, you're what's wrong with America and public education?
My response was going to be, well, it sucks to suck. But now that you phrased it like that, that cannot be my response. Because now I'm like, oh, harming children sucks to suck. So, okay, my thing is, please do some research. Like, if I can address all of the trolls, just please do some real research. I mean, read, just talk to the kids. That's what I want to say.
Yes, that I completely agree. Talk to the kids, involve the kids. With me, it has been comments about parenting saying like the what you're teaching is just teaching soft kids. And one of the things is, what is it good to raise a society of hard kids? Like, where has it taken it?
And is it soft or is it just
Yeah.
emotionally intelligent?
Yeah,
And does
it
it
is
make you
not.
uncomfortable? So you're going to call it soft.
Yeah. So, be able to understand kids, be able to involve them in everything. I mean, the decisions that we make as adults also affect them in their own lives. So why do we not involve them in decisions that they should be involved in, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
And they have such good ideas. I
yes.
get my best ideas from the kids.
They're phenomenal. Working with them, like even today in my class, I have the kids open my classes every day. Like they guide the class to the bell ringer, they check agendas, like they do the things for the first 5 minutes of class. And then one of my kids today was like, would it be okay if I do the bell ringer a little bit differently? Like, can I make it like Simon Says to be more engaging? And I was like, absolutely. And she's going to tell you my idea. I'm like, I trust you. Like, show me what you got. Like, let's see this. I'm
Yeah.
excited. And she did a phenomenal job. Like, she got the kids out of their seat, like modeling things. And I'm just like, snaps to you in the back of the room.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And I also think it's interesting too, hearing what you're saying about we should just talk to the kids, how frustrated we feel that the people who make decisions for education don't talk to us.
Yes.
Oh,
Like,
man.
just consider
Mic
those
drop.
feelings. And I also would consider somebody who just feels so much vitriol that they feel the need to comment on our posts about loving children.
Vitriol.
Yes, the word of the day for I don't know if it's the word of the day. That's a lie. I have no idea what the word of the day is. The word of the day at my school today was gloaming, but it was not vitriol. Maybe that'll be the word tomorrow.
Yeah.
Anyways, my thing would be to say, why do you feel that way? Think about yourself and unpack why you're feeling so heated that you feel the need to come address me in the way that you are.
Triggered.
Yeah, what happened in your educational journey that has led you to this point to feel this?
And not necessarily educational, even their personal journey. Because you just said, how frustrated do we feel when administrators don't talk to us? But let's put it in the personal arena. How frustrated did you feel when you were a teen, when you were a kid, when your parents didn't hear or didn't involve you in decisions that related to your life, So it might be that. It might be, look into the inner self. What were the experiences that you had that lead you to believe that, being hard on kids is the way to go?
Yeah, exactly. And we're also here to talk. Like, you want to message us and have like a cordial conversation? We're here to talk and have a conversation too.
Yes.
Please do your research.
Yes. Please don't refer to us with disrespectful terms and names.
Thank you.
It's always appreciated. And then final 2 things for today's episode are things that we still want to learn about and that we're excited to learn about. And for me, that's grades. I'm really intrigued to dive into grades and how that affects kids.
I want to learn. sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Brittany.
I was just gonna say, I want to learn how this impacts teacher evaluations, like
Ooh.
the power hierarchy, and how he talked about when you have somebody that's doling out grades or doling out evaluations, how that impacts your relationships with them, and then it actually impacts like the type of learning that happens.
Mhm.
And what is that doing to teachers during that teacher evaluation?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always had a theory about that. I've always thought that they were really unhelpful.
You and everybody else. Yeah. Super unhelpful. Like,
I was also going to say, maybe like me and Ashlyn will probably talk about it more in our next workshop, but
Oh yeah.
rethinking assessments and how they relate to like the fear of failure. I think that that is something that I want to expand more and learn more about as well.
Yes, a small plug. Sharon is going to be presenting in the village in March, mid to late March, all about fear and how it relates to child achievement and conscious classroom management.
Yes.
Can
That's
DM either
cool.
of us if you're interested in learning more about that.
Yes, you can.
And then finally, based on all the things that we've learned, what is one action tip we have for teachers and or caregivers?
I feel like an action tip would be providing like meaningful choices for kids, um, making sure that you know we are still setting our clear and firm boundaries and expectations, but giving that kind of support and guidance and like taking meaningful providing them meaningful choices to their lives, to their behavior and their environments.
I think that um, we need to approach every child as if they want to learn, they want to participate, they want to belong. And we need to start asking, what is the behavior communicating? And we need to solve the behavior.
Yeah, that asset-based lens and curiosity lens.
Yes.
Yes.
And then for me, it would be that it's never too late to change things.
Oh yeah.
Like if you're watching this and you're reading this book and you're like, oh crap, what have I done? It's never too late to change things. Like we're all here learning and growing together. You know, and even like us reading it, like Brittany and I are hosting this whole thing, and we're like, oh man, when we read something because we're like, we do this too. You know, like even Brittany, you're like the prime example for this.
Yep.
Because her school is so infused in PBIS, and with one of her sections, she's like, nope, I'm not going to do it this section anymore, and just experiment to see how it goes. And what's your update on that, Brittany? How's it going for you?
Great. It's the kids are reflecting. The behavior seems to be the same as when I was rewarding. But yeah, I haven't seen too much difference in like intrinsic motivation or community, but it's only been 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, like
And there's going to be a buildup too after being in PBIS for so many years.
Right. And they're still existing in a PBIS reward system based school. So
Yeah.
I just know that I enjoy it better
Mhm.
because I'm not constantly having to like prompt behavior and tell them about their points. They also, when they don't stress about, I will say that they do not stress at the end of class over how many points they lost because I don't do points. So they're more concentrated on, you know, in the moment.
That's awesome.
It is. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, I think that this was a solid episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We covered a lot of stuff. And then next week, we're going to be talking about, let me read the chapter, cutting the interest rate. The 5 reasons rewards fail. So it should be a good one.
Yes.
Come back. Listen to us.
Yeah.
Hear us talk. Hear Brittany teach us more about what was it?
brain chemistry.
Chemical brain
Yes.
chemistry. She'll be back
That's what
next
I'm here
week.
for.
I'll be looking forward to hearing that part.
Yeah.
And it was so nice having you on today too, Sharon. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed it. We had so much fun, and yeah, learned a lot together.
Yeah, and that's what you need. You have that supportive community of fellow educators to keep you going because we know it is not easy out there.
Mm-mm.
So I guess I'll close this out then. We hope that this podcast made you feel ignited about education and that after listening, you leave feeling remoralized and re energized. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.